For decades, nuclear war has been a distant shadow, the nightmare everyone knows is possible, but no one believes will actually happen. People imagine missile silos in Russia, submarines under the Arctic, or war games in Washington. But what if the unimaginable happened right in the heart of America? What if, in a single blinding moment, New York City, the financial capital of the world, home to over 8 million people, was hit by a nuclear weapon? This is a timeline of the first 72 hours after such a strike. Not fiction, not fantasy, but based on military doctrine, civil defense planning, and the harsh realities of nuclear escalation. Hour zero, the flash over Manhattan. It is 8:17 a.m. on a weekday morning, rush hour. The skies are clear. Without warning, a single intercontinental ballistic missile breaks through American missile defenses. In seconds, its warhead detonates above Midtown Manhattan with a yield of 800 kilotons, far smaller than Russia's largest weapons, but more than enough to obliterate the city. A blinding flash erupts, brighter than the sun. For anyone within a mile, it is the last thing they ever see. In an instant, the blast incinerates Times Square, the Empire State Building, and everything in the surrounding blocks. The fireball swallows glass towers, cars, buses, and tens of thousands of people. Shockwaves ripple outward, flattening buildings, flipping vehicles, and shattering windows across boroughs. Bridges collapse, tunnels flood with fire, and the iconic skyline disappears under a mushroom cloud, rising miles into the sky. In the blink of an eye, the world has changed forever. Hour 1, the United States in shock emergency, broadcasts cut into every screen. The president, still in a secure facility, is briefed on the scale of destruction. Tens of thousands are dead instantly. Hundreds of thousands more are injured or trapped in rubble. Survivors across Queens, Brooklyn, and New Jersey stumble through smoke and ash. Hospitals are gone. Firefighters, police, and EMTs are either dead or overwhelmed. Communications collapse as cell towers and power lines fail. In Washington, D.C., NORAD confirms the launch point was Russian. The Pentagon scrambles bombers, submarines dive deeper, and nuclear command protocols are activated. The United States has minutes to decide, retaliate, or wait to confirm if this is a first strike or a single warning shot. Hour 3. Panic spreads. Nationwide, news spreads like wildfire. Grainy images of the mushroom cloud flood social media before the networks collapse. Across the U.S., millions head for stores, highways, and shelters. In cities like Chicago, Los Angeles, and Houston, panic buying clears shelves in hours. Gas stations are mobbed, airports shut down, and chaos grips the streets. Financial markets crash harder than ever before. Wall Street, the beating heart of global finance, is gone. Trading halts worldwide, oil prices spike, and currencies plunge. The shock is not just emotional, but economic. The system itself begins to crack. Hour 6, fallout begins. Winds push radioactive fallout eastward over Long Island and New England. In areas spared the fireball, deadly ash begins to fall from the sky. Those without shelter breathe in radiation and suffer burns on exposed skin. The government issues urgent warnings. Stay indoors, seal windows, avoid exposure. But millions don't hear the message. Communications are patchy, power grids failing, and panic outweighs reason. Families flee into traffic jams stretching for miles, unknowingly driving straight into fallout zones. Hour 12, the president speaks. From a secure bunker, the U.S. president addresses a terrified nation. Today, America has suffered a nuclear strike on its soil. New York City has been attacked, and countless lives have been lost. Let me be clear. The United States will respond. but our first priority is saving lives, preserving stability, and preventing further strikes. The words are meant to calm, but the world hears something else. War is inevitable. NATO convenes in Brussels. Allies declare total solidarity with the U.S., but they too fear escalation. Russia denies responsibility, claiming rogue elements or a technical malfunction. Western intelligence rejects this, but the confusion deepens. Hour 18, a nation in ruins. Rescue efforts begin at the edge of the blast zone. Soldiers, FEMA teams, and volunteers dig through rubble, but the devastation is beyond comprehension. Fires burn out of control. Millions are without power, water, or food. Meanwhile, Russian state TV declares victory. The West has been warned. The Kremlin insists the strike was limited, and that any retaliation will bring global destruction. In the U.S., the Pentagon readies strike packages. Submarines lurk off Russian coasts. Bombers circle in Arctic skies. The world is on hair-trigger alert. Hour 24, the longest day, ends. As night falls on the first day, New York glows with fire visible from space. Casualty estimates top 1 million. Radiation spreads across the Northeast. Hospitals in Boston, Philadelphia, and Washington overflow with evacuees. The question haunting every leader, soldier, and civilian is simple and terrifying. Was this the beginning of all-out nuclear war, or a single strike meant to shock the West into surrender? For now, the only certainty is that the next 48 hours will decide the fate of the world. Hour 25, the second dawn. The second day begins with New York still burning. The skyline is gone, replaced by a scar of smoldering rubble. Rescue teams move cautiously, Geiger counters clicking in their hands. Survivors are pulled from collapsed subway tunnels and basements, but the chances of finding more alive are fading. The United States military now operates under DEFCON 1, maximum readiness. Nuclear forces are dispersed, submarines fully deployed, and bombers on constant patrol. The world is officially closer to nuclear war than at any point in history. Hour 28, NATO's emergency session. In Brussels, NATO leaders meet behind closed doors. Poland, the Baltic states, and the UK demand immediate retaliation against Russia, warning that inaction will destroy the alliance's credibility. Germany and several southern European nations urge caution, fearing a chain reaction that would annihilate Europe within hours. The Secretary General declares that Article 5 has been triggered. An attack on one is an attack on all. But unity fractures over what collective defense should mean when nuclear weapons are involved. Hour 30, Moscow's denial, Washington's dilemma. In Moscow, the Kremlin continues to deny responsibility, blaming rogue elements or a misfired missile. Russian state TV insists the attack was a warning shot, meant to end the war in Ukraine and force NATO to negotiate. In Washington, the president faces an impossible decision: retaliate with nuclear force and risk full-scale Armageddon, hold back and risk appearing weak, inviting more strikes. Advisors present three options: limited nuclear response, strike Russian military targets but avoid cities; conventional retaliation, unleash overwhelming conventional strikes while holding nuclear weapons in reserve; diplomatic off-ramp, threaten massive retaliation but hold fire if Russia backs down. Every option carries existential risks. Hour 36, the panic grows. Across America, panic spreads faster than order can be restored. Supermarkets are empty, ATMs have run dry, and gas stations are shuttered. In rural towns, rumors of incoming strikes cause mass evacuations, even where no danger exists. On Wall Street, what remains of it, trading is suspended indefinitely. Global markets teeter on collapse. Oil prices double overnight, and nations dependent on food imports from the U.S. face sudden shortages. The world economy itself is unraveling. Hour 40. The refugee wave. From New York and New Jersey, millions flee westward. Roads are clogged with vehicles. Those who stayed in fallout zones begin to show signs of radiation sickness, nausea, burns, bleeding. Hospitals in Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and Cleveland are overwhelmed. International aid begins trickling in, but distribution is chaos. NATO allies send doctors and supplies, yet logistics collapse under the weight of radiation and destroyed infrastructure. Hour 44. The cyber war. Suddenly, major U.S. banks and power grids face unprecedented cyber attacks. ATMs shut down nationwide, stock exchanges in Europe are crippled, and flights across the U.S. are grounded due to software failures. Intelligence officials blame Russia's cyber units, escalating the crisis further. Ordinary Americans now feel the war in their homes. No electricity, no internet, no financial access. The war is no longer over there. It is everywhere. Hour 48, brink of retaliation. As the second day ends, the U.S. president meets with NATO's top leaders in a secure video summit. The military is ready to strike at a moment's notice. Russian forces are on the highest alert, submarines prowling beneath the Arctic ice. The world is locked in a deadly standoff. The decision of whether to retaliate with conventional or nuclear weapons will determine if humanity steps back from the edge or plunges into all-out global war. Hour 49, silent cities. Day 3 begins under an eerie silence. New York, once the city that never sleeps, is reduced to ash and smoke. From space, satellites capture a scar where Manhattan once stood, its glow visible even against the rising sun. Survivors, exhausted and irradiated, stumble through the wreckage. Few still hold hope of rescue. Across the country, major cities remain on edge. Sirens blare, false alarms spark mass panics, and people huddle in basements convinced that more strikes are imminent. The psychological trauma now spreads faster than the physical damage. Hour 52. NATO commits. In Brussels, after 2 days of debate, NATO makes its choice. Article 5 is invoked fully. The alliance announces a coordinated military response, though it stops short of declaring nuclear retaliation. Troop deployments accelerate. American, British, and French forces flood into Eastern Europe. Missile defense systems are activated across the continent. Fighter squadrons patrol skies near the Baltic, Poland, and the Black Sea. The world is now locked in a state of high alert. Hour 56, Moscow's counter-move. Russia responds with fury. Strategic bombers circle its borders. Nuclear-capable Iskander missiles are moved into Belarus, and state television warns any attack on Russian territory will be met with a nuclear response. Soil will be answered with fire and ash. At the same time, Russian cyber operations intensify. The U.S. power grid suffers rolling blackouts. Water systems in several states are disrupted. Even GPS networks falter, grounding flights across North America. It is clear the war is no longer contained to the blast zone. It has spread to every corner of society. Hour 60, retaliation in the shadows. The United States authorizes limited conventional strikes against Russian positions in Kaliningrad and Belarus. Precision missiles hit military bases, radar sites, and command posts. Explosions ripple across Eastern Europe. Russia responds with conventional missile attacks on NATO air bases in Poland and Germany. Casualties mount on both sides. The fear is that one more misstep will push both nations to unleash nuclear arsenals. Hour 66. The world reacts. China calls for an emergency UN Security Council meeting, demanding a ceasefire. India and Brazil echo the call, but their influence is limited. Global protests erupt. In London and Paris, people march for peace. In Warsaw and Kyiv, crowds demand escalation. Oil prices skyrocket. The dollar plunges. and entire economies teeter on collapse. For billions outside the direct conflict, the war is already reshaping daily life. Shortages, blackouts, inflation, and fear. Hour 70, diplomacy or destruction. Back-channel talks begin through Switzerland and Turkey. Russian envoys signal they will accept a ceasefire if NATO halts strikes and promises no nuclear response. Some U.S. advisors see this as a trap. Others see the last chance to step back from the brink. The president faces the hardest decision in American history: retaliate further and risk ending civilization, or hold fire and risk looking weak while millions already suffer. Hour 72, the tipping point. The third night ends with humanity at the edge of annihilation. NATO forces are mobilized, Russian nuclear silos remain open, and the fate of the world depends on choices made in dimly lit rooms far from the rubble of New York. The attack has already rewritten history. What comes next may erase it entirely. The story of a nuclear strike on New York isn't just a grim scenario. It's a reminder of how fragile our world really is. In just 72 hours, millions of lives could be shattered, global systems could collapse, and the future of humanity could hang by a thread. We often think of nuclear war as something distant, a Cold War nightmare locked in history. But as tensions rise between the world's major powers, the risk is never truly gone. This timeline forces us to confront the uncomfortable truth. The survival of our civilization depends not just on weapons, but on choices. Will leaders choose restraint over pride, diplomacy over destruction, or will history repeat the mistakes that nearly ended it all once before? Thank you for watching Crisis Timeline. If you found this film thought-provoking, share it, discuss it, and let me know in the comments. What do you think humanity would do in these first 72 hours? Because the answer may decide whether our future is written in ash or hope.